Sage Wanderer here, coming at you from my cabin down by the creek. So, looks like we're going to war with Iran. So, everyone knows I won't cover this like news because it's all over the news. Just tune in any place else and you can get the down low. But, just as an overview, apparently we dropped some bunker buster bombs on the Iranian uranium enrichment facility. There were several targets. The main hardened target, which was reportedly 300 feet underground, was hit with 6 bunker buster bombs from U.S. bombers piloted by U.S. servicemen. So this was a direct attack Donald Trump addressed to the nation last night. And this is what some of us woke up to this morning, right? And the big question is this World War III? And is this the end times? Is this the lead up to the Battle of Armageddon? Is this that which was spoken of in the book of Revelation? And I think that you can tune in just about any Christian prophecy type of channel, and they'll be screaming from the mountaintops that this is it, this is it, this is it. But I do want to point out that they've been saying this is it for my entire life. Like when the first Israeli war broke out, it was this is it, and that was, gosh, before I was born, like the 67 war. All through my childhood, anytime there was a flare up in the Middle East, this is it, this is the big one. When we went to war with Saddam Hussein over Kuwait in the first Gulf War, this is it, this is it, this is the end times, this is all going to happen. The nukes are flying, the sky is falling, Jesus will be back any second. They were saying that at World War II. During World War II, people were saying, this is it, this is the end times. Adolf Hitler's the Antichrist. So my biggest argument against this end time prophecy and how this is it, this is the end, we're in it, the beast is here, mark of the beast, run for your life, we're all gonna get beheaded. I hate to make light of it, but it's a bit laughable. Honestly, the predictions have become laughable in my lifetime. So when every prophecy channel on the internet's going, this is the big one, this is it, here's why, and these are all the scriptures, and yeah, you sound just like the other people that didn't get it right. You sound just like the other people that have been calling for this and saying that this was going to happen my entire life, and honestly, since before I was born. So I don't put a lot of credence into that sort of thing. And, I've heard every public figure who has any impact at all on the world, from Putin to the original Ayatollah to Saddam Hussein to Osama bin Laden, right? Everybody, Bill Clinton, everybody's the beast. Everybody has a theory about who the Antichrist is, and this is the mark of the beast. The Social Security number was your mark of the beast. Your driver's license was the mark of the beast. Oh, it's when they scan things in the grocery store, that's the mark of the beast. It just goes on and on and on and on. Now, that's not to say that eventually somebody won't be right. Like even a stopped clock is right twice a day. But I gotta say that I just can't put a lot of credit in that. And part of it too is that Americans have arrogance. We're one of the most arrogant nations to ever occupy the planet. The me generation, right, was the generation before my generation. And, every generation, I think, just gets a little more self-centered. And I won't spend this time indicting the American way, other than to say we're so focused on ourselves, we think we're the center of the world, the center of the universe. Many of us in the Christian church even think that the American Christian church, the evangelical church, is the center of God's attention in the universe. And I don't know, that honestly comes from a position of pride, if you ask me. And I feel like that there's a lot of people that want to put America dead center in the end time prophecy game, that surely America has to be the center of it. And honestly, you can identify many nations, including the Persian state, which is now Iran. You can you can include many of these. Russia is definitely the bear. It's definitely in the Bible. Kings of the East. Um, where is America? And that is one of the biggest arguments against any of our involvement having to do with the end times, is that it seems that America is kind of not there in biblical scripture, except one place where it absolutely is, in my opinion. There's one section of the book of Revelation, and it's a reference and a story of a thing called the Whore of Babylon. It's a nation that, according to the scripture, led all other nations into debauchery, into hedonism, into sinful, lustful, greedy, self-centered arrogance, and that it was the leader of the world in this, and that its exports were world famous, and everyone enjoyed the commerce. You see, the Whore of Babylon, the book of Revelation, is a very clear picture of the United States, right down to our current kind of feminist worldview. The woman doesn't need a man, right? The family is whatever family you decide it to be. This rejection of the nuclear family, this rejection of the traditional values, the roles of men and women, even gender itself, right, is at the center of the American modern story. And this is very much illustrated quite well in all of these esoteric but clear statements in Revelation concerning the Whore of Babylon. And in that story, the Whore of Babylon is destroyed in a single day. This is why that entity isn't there at the Battle of Armageddon. This entity isn't there at the very end of the end times, but gets taken out rather early in the story, rather quickly on at the very beginning of the end times. The Whore of Babylon is wiped off the face of the earth in a single day. They say that in the scripture it talks about ships at sea who are staying off of the coastline for fear that if they get too close to the coastline, what wiped out that nation would affect their ships. Radiation, right? Now, the Whore of Babylon could specifically refer to the city of New York. That there's a lot of reasons why the city of New York itself might be the target and the cause of the downfall, the center of the idea and personality and persona of the Whore of Babylon. The Statue of Liberty being like a literal physical manifestation of that spirit. And so this could be a description of the destruction of New York alone or the nation as a whole. Now let's flip over from the Bible to one of my favorite topics, which is the Titor timeline. And if you're a fan of the channel, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, just go Google John Titor, time traveler, and get your mind blown. But in that storyline, there's a civil war in the United States between people of traditional values and progressives. And the progressives in the city start to target the more traditional minded people who live in more rural and southern states. And a civil war breaks out. And then right in the middle of this civil war, the United States gets nuked by Russia. See, that's the big wild card in what's going on right now in the world, is Russia. Russia, Russia, Russia. What is Russia going to do? You know, they warned us not to get involved in this Israeli-Iran war. And as of last night, we are absolutely very much involved. And there was even some saber rattling that would cause them to go into direct conflict with the United States and Russia. So this very well could be the beginning of World War III. And in the Titor timeline, World War III happens rather quickly, and right off the bat, the United States gets nuked in the Titor timeline. Not the whole country, not the center of the country where many of you and myself live, but the coastal regions and the major cities. That what's called a tactical strike. or strategic strike rather. There's a tactical nuke, which is a small battlefield nuke, and then there's a strategic nuke, which is a city destroying bomb designed to wipe out all human existence and make sure nobody ever lives there again. And this is the kind of nuclear war that we Gen Xers and baby boomers grew up in fear of. This is the duck and cover, get under your desk, like that's going to help you any. I recently posted up on one of my social media accounts, this image of a desk, one of those old desks, metal desks from school, with the little cubby where you can put all your stuff inside, and it's the 4 metal legs. And if you grew up in that area, you know what the desks were like. And it was labeled Gen X bomb shelter, and I said I feel so much safer just having it, as a joke. But yeah, that's not going to help you. There's not going to be any hiding from this. But the thing about these nukes is that, according to the Titor timeline again, they hit all of the coastal cities, like New York, LA, Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, and probably some of the other northern cities like Chicago. But the middle part of the country was left untouched. And the Russians and the Chinese, who did this bombing in the Titor timeline, in this fantasy or prophetic utterance, or I don't believe he was a time traveler, maybe he just guessed real good predictor of the future. There was no land invasion, because once the cities were taken out and America was crippled, then there was no reason to follow up. It was America was just at that point trying to survive itself, what was left of it. And so the Titor timeline is actually kind of in sync with the Whore of Babylon scripture from the book of Revelation. That the idea that the United States isn't really prevalent and present in most of the end times breakdowns, when you go to countries that are named from their symbology or actually literally named in the book of Revelation and in other Old Testament prophecies, America's just not there. That's because America is the Whore of Babylon, and America will more than likely get destroyed at the very beginning of World War III. And I know this isn't what you want to hear. I'm not trying to scare you. Once again, I have to reiterate that, this thing is a simulation, right? The physical world we live in is irrelevant. We are spiritual beings having a earthly experience, right? This is whether you want to call this training ground, a giant test, or maybe it's just a vacation from real base reality. But base reality is wherever God is. Base reality is where Jesus Christ went to prepare a place for us. He went there to make sure we had a place to go when this party is over. And so if, we get nuked, right? Or if I walk out of my front door and get hit by a garbage truck, right, and it's over for me one way or the other, I know to be absent in the body is to be present with the Lord. I know that Jesus Christ has got me. I know in whom I believe in, and I am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I have given unto him until that day. Whether that day be the day I finally kick the bucket and are no longer present in the physical world, or whether that's when the whole thing ends, or if the United States get nuked. Life and death doesn't matter much to you when you understand that you are an eternal being, that you existed in the hands of the Father before this earth was created, that you've been with him from the beginning of time, that you are a part of him. When he breathed that breath of life into Adam and Eve, he gave animation to our bodies, and we became a living spirit, right? This is when we became one with God. And we were always one with God. That breath always existed with him, and it will exist throughout eternity. I'm an eternal being. My life on this earth is simply here to test me. It's for an experience. It's the Matrix to a certain degree. This is why I don't get too worried about all of this stuff, right? I keep one eye on the news, and I tend to live my life and stay focused on the spiritual things that actually mean something. What people think is important isn't, and what people think is is a waste of time is actually the reason for living. There's the spiritual walk, your relationship with God, your understanding of who you are, your battle against not flesh and blood, but against principalities and spirits and powers of wickedness in high places. This battle for your soul that you live every day, that's what matters. That's what's important. And it's easy to get swept up in this stuff. But I will say this, the world has become instantly destabilized, that it was not, in my opinion, a prudent thing to do to escalate things now with Iran. So let's talk about what the repercussions could be, what's going to happen, how it could affect our lives here in this part of the matrix, right? In this simulation. Because, there is cause and effect. So the first thing that I heard this morning is that the Parliament of Iran has made a unanimous decision to close the Straits of Hormuz. So this is a bottleneck point in shipping that happens right off the coast of Yemen. And this is where the Houthis, which are an Iranian proxy group, are in control of the coastal areas of Yemen. They're not in control of all of Yemen. Northern Yemen, I think, is still under the previous military dictatorship. And so the Houthis are kind of a rebel group that control the southern coastal areas of Yemen. And they've already, been interdicting in our commercial trade there, boarding commercial vessels, taking some of them. I remember a tanker in particular that was pirated by the Yemenis, by the Houthis, the Houthi rebels. And they've been lobbing missiles at Israel off and on since the invasion of Gaza by Israel. And now, having said that, Iran proper has voted to close the Straits of Hormuz, which are right there off the coast of Yemen. And so how does that affect us? Well, 80% of the oil trade passes through the Straits of Hormuz. I'm sorry, it's 20%. Let me take that back. 20% of the world's oil passes through there. India, though, gets 80% of their oil that they import, and India functions on imported oil. Remember now, India is also a nuclear power, and they are very much in an on-again, off-again war with Pakistan, who is aligned with Iran and Russia. And so you've got India, who's relying on this oil. 80% of their oil comes through the Straits of Hormuz. And Iran's going to close that to all international shipping, probably using the Houthis based on land and the Iranian, Navy. And so that's something that's going to happen. Pete Hegseth, our warfighter, he came out and clearly said there would be repercussions, that would be an escalation. But you can't just pick a fight with somebody and destroy their military bases and expect them to just go, okay, you're right, guess I had that coming. Okay, we're going to shake that off. And no, there's going to be repercussions. Closing the Straits of Hormuz is going to happen. It's probably going to cause a naval blockade, potentially, and naval battles will break out there. We're going to have more lobbing of missiles and back and forth between various places, various states. I think the American bases all over the world now are on high alert and are ready for everything from truck bombs to direct missile attacks. And, everything's on the table now. And the big question is, what's Russia going to do? Russia's there waiting still to hear from them. And, of course, China's over there going, when everyone's distracted, I'm going to take back Taiwan. We always know that's right on the verge of happening. So expect oil prices to go through the roof. And, if Pakistan, who is opposed, not Pakistan, but if India, who is enemies with Pakistan, that is aligned with Iran, right? And Iran closed the Straits of Hormuz. This could cause India to do something potentially to Iran directly or to Pakistan. And it's just everything is so lined up for the perfect situation here for World War III to happen. And Tulsi Gabbard initially said that she did not. Now, she's the head of our National Security Agency, and I don't remember what her title is, but she's involved in in intelligence gathering. And she said that she had no information that Iran is trying to make a nuclear weapon. Now, she walked that back under a great deal of pressure. Donald Trump basically not basically, straight up said Tulsi Gabbard's wrong. But I kind of trust her to be outside of the influence of the military industrial complex to some degree. I kind of find her to be an outsider within Trump's organization. So I tend to believe her. A lot of my friends are like, yay, we finally did away with Iran's ability to come up with a nuke. They've been trying to make a nuke forever. We used to say that about North Korea. North Korea got the nuke, tested the nuke, and proved they had the nuke. Right? We all know now that North Korea has nukes. But it's not the end of the world. Even though they might have chanted death to America and wrote songs about it, they didn't declare war on us just because they got the nuke. We got so many more. Lots of people got the nuke. It doesn't mean they're going to use it. Right? And to start a war to prevent somebody from getting it, I'm not even sure is a valid argument, in my opinion, right? But I'm anti-war. I'm always going to choose anti-war. You know why? Because in war, babies die. No matter how much you try not to make that happen, children suffer. And it's better to tie a millstone around your neck and throw yourself in the ocean than it is to hurt a child. And so I'm always very much against any kind of war. Because even though this strike against Iran was directly against military, installations, there were no children hurt in this endeavor to my knowledge. But what's coming next? What's that going to lead to? So I'm always for, let's talk it out. I'm always for, there's no reason to fight unless they're shooting at you. If they're shooting at you, shoot back. Right? And when this thing started, nobody was shooting at us. Right? When, honestly, nobody was shooting at Israel except these proxies, right? And Israel and the United States say, well, these proxies are powered by Iran. Well, but did Iran actually shoot at you? I mean, can't you focus on the proxies, right? Deal with the proxies. Deal with who's shooting at you. I'm not going to go punch this other guy because his friend took a swing at me, right? I'm going to deal with the friend that took the swing at me. I just see things differently. And part of it is I see things almost entirely from a spiritual point of view. And I am not afraid of death. Death is just a doorway into back to base reality where my soul communes with God. Right? This earth is a field trip or a prison or a test, but it's not my home. This world is not my home. I'm only passing through. Right? If heaven were not my home, oh Lord, what would I do? Because I can't feel at home in this world anymore. If you can't tell, I'm quoting old gospel lyrics. Yeah, I don't feel at home in this world. Heaven is my home. I'm just passing through. So I'm more concerned with my eternal soul than international politics. It's why anytime a war comes up, I'm going to greatly be against it, because I don't want to stand before the Father and have him go, hey, how come you were for that war when all these children died and all this suffering came from it? Why didn't you call for peace? Why didn't you pray for peace? Why didn't you advocate peace? Why didn't you stand up and say something when they started this mess that hurt all these babies and killed all these children and starved all these people and caused all this suffering? War is hell. What is war good for? Absolutely nothing. Now, I'm a warrior. I'm trained in it. I have weapons of war. I do. I have them. I collect them, right? With the intention of never having to use them, right? Peace through strength. So I am definitely opposed to the escalation of what's happened here. I don't know that it's a sign of the end times. If it is, and you live in a coastal city in the United States, you live in LA, San Diego, Portland, Seattle, if you live in Philadelphia, Boston, New York especially, you live in New York, you live in New York State, if you live downwind from New York, right? Yeah, you might consider moving to the center of the country. You might consider moving away from these hotbeds, because the way I have looked at the end times, the only significant imagery of the United States I can find is the Whore of Babylon that gets destroyed in a single day. The whole world mourns because it was the leader of the world, the whore of Babylon in the book of Revelation. And that can only mean the United States. So is this just more war like we've experienced our entire lives? You know, the 20th and the 21st century have just been nonstop global warfare. There's not, World War I, World War II, World War III. It's just world war really since the 1890s. For the last 150 years, it's been nothing but war up in here. And it's getting worse. I don't know. World War I was hairy. World War II was all in. We've not seen anything like World War II since World War II, but now the weapons are all different. And we don't even know whether these strikes were actually successful. Iran's had 30 years at least to prepare for this. We've been threatening what Donald Trump just did has been threatened against Iran for decades. And I think if it was defeatable, if they were able to preserve what they were trying to preserve and keep it from being destroyed, that it's very possible they did, And there's this whole thing of, maybe they already have nukes. They've been 2 weeks away from a nuclear bomb. My entire adult life. They've been saying this. That's something I talked about in the previous video. They've been saying this for a long time, right? What makes you think they don't have them? Maybe Iran doesn't need Russia's help. Now, the Titor timeline has that destruction of New York and the coastal cities happening at the hands of Russia and China. The book of Revelation doesn't really tell you who did it to the whore of Babylon, just that it happened. And it changed the face of the world, especially financially. That was the thing about the whore of Babylon, was like the financial leader of the world. And also the cultural leader of the world, the exporter of this non-biblical lifestyle that's promoted out of our country and through our entertainment and our pop culture. So is America about to get destroyed in a fiery nuclear explosion? At least the coastal cities? Maybe that's what happens. Maybe this is just more of the same. Maybe it'll blow over. I don't know. Maybe the sky is not falling. I'm not convinced this is an end time trigger, because we've had so many of them, all right? And they turned out to be just another Tuesday, biblically, just another Tuesday when it comes to prophecy. That everything that everyone has hung their hats on, from Gaddafi in Libya and Saddam Hussein in Iraq and Osama bin Laden and Yasser Arafat, Sadat. I've heard this my whole life about these Middle Eastern characters. Putin's the Antichrist. Clinton's the Antichrist. Obama's the Antichrist. Everybody's got, they just like let it go. You've been wrong so much. Sooner or later, somebody's going to get it right. But I think it'll be obvious when it happens. And this is still not obvious. This could just be more of the same kind of, could just be another little mini Gulf War. We already went to war with Iraq, right? We already went to war in Afghanistan. War in Iran, boots on the ground, probably so. That's probably where this is headed. Because ultimately, I think this is about controlling the oil in the Middle East. I think after 9/11, I can't remember the general's name. McGrath seems to stick in my head. I could be wrong. But there was a general who put forth a plan after 9/11 to completely subdue all of the Middle East. And I talked about this in previous videos. Got to take down Iraq, take down Afghanistan, take down Syria, Libya, Lebanon, which is Lebanon's civil war has kind of made it moot to some degree, and Iran. That these nations, these independent, militaristic, armed, let's just put it, Muslim countries, right? Radical Muslim countries had to be brought down for the security of the United States. And this general put forth this plan 24 years ago. And I believe that this is just another leg in the plan. I mean, what really changed? Share the information with us, President Trump. You're telling us, and the Israelis are telling us, that they're days away from having a nuclear weapon. Really? Where's the photos? Let's see the proof. How about the testimony of the undercover agents who infiltrated, right? What proof do you have? Where's the weapons of mass destruction you promised, right? I mean, we already fell for the banana in the tailpipe once before. No, I think it's very clear that this is just military industrial complex control of the oil. There's a thing called peak oil. This is where we get to the point where all the cheap and easy oil that is easily extractable has already been utilized and removed from the earth, and what's left is the oil that has to be the dirty oil, which has to have more refinement and more filtering to be usable. So therefore, it's more expensive. And when you reach that point when all the good oil is gone, that's when the oil wars will start. There was a book called Oil Wars that I read back in the 90s, in the mid 90s, late 90s. And it laid this all out, that there was going to be a war over oil. And many wars fought over the control of oil. And yeah, this is an oil war, man. Iran, President Trump even said it. This is a nation that is rich in oil. They don't need nuclear power. They got enough oil to have oil generated power on the cheap. What do you need nuclear power for? Was what Donald Trump's been telling us. And in doing so, he's telling us that they have what we want, right? They have this commodity, and the control of that commodity is of utmost importance to the very most wealthy and powerful people on the planet. So this isn't a war about nuclear weapons. It just isn't, right? That's just the excuse they're using. This war is and has been and is going to continue in the Middle East to be about controlling those oil fields and preventing any radical nations who hate America and the West from controlling any portion of that oil. So I predict boots on the ground in Iran. I predict invasion eventually, first a massive bombing campaign. They'll probably draw their meager navy into battles over the Straits of Hormuz. This is going to cause oil prices to go up, which just makes oil companies get richer. They get richer. It gives them an excuse to raise prices. So $4, $5 gas, it's probably going up even as we speak, just because the bombs fell last night. I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments section. Is this the end of the world as we know it? Is this the end time being played out before our very eyes? Just forget all those other times it was the end times played out. This is the actual end times now. Is that what we're facing? Is this just more of the same? Is this just more of the powers that be wanting to control the commodity of oil? Right? Is Trump in on it, or was he just being used? Are you in favor of this war? You think we just go around bombing places because we don't like what they have? I don't know. If it causes one child to die, it's not worth it. I don't want to be a warmonger. I don't want to be somebody who is in favor of something that causes suffering, especially children. That's the Christian in me, right? That's my heart that loves God and loves people. So, I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments section. We'll see you next time. Hey, don't forget to support the channel. I forgot to take my offering up front here. So if you're still listening, please make a contribution. Things have been really tight lately. I'm barely getting by. And anything you can do to help this channel and keep me on the air is greatly appreciated. You'll find links in the description below. And we'll see you next time from my cabin down by the creek.